Good afternoon, Gold and Black Live. Both Morgan and Elliot have trudged their way here. It's a little snowy here in West Lafayette. When has it not been snowy? This has been a crazy
It's been long.
winter.
It started in November.
Coldest winter I remember.
I don't know. I've lived here a long time, and I think my senior year in high school, which was only 10 years ago, was a bad winter. So, no, 1978, this is about like that. So, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join us. Gold and Black Live, you are watching. Our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, Triple X, Basham Reynolds, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. And obviously, busy night in Boilermaker Athletics last night. Elliot, I don't know what time the plane got home last night, but up at Michigan. Really some good things that happened. A tough loss, but Michigan a very good basketball team.
Yeah, we got in late, but about 2:30 landed back on campus. Michigan is a very good team, and in our opinion, they probably the conference player of the year in Nick Stauskas, and they're on a roll now. And Coach Katie always says it's not who you play, it's when you play them, and they're in the middle of a streak right now. And I looked at their schedule a bit last night, and I think. Obviously, they're at the top of the standings now, but they're probably the team to beat going down the stretch now. We felt like we did some good things. Obviously, needed to make more shots, convert more free throws, but we're seeing bits and pieces here and there. I mean, as Coach keeps saying, the guys need to get seasoning on them. These young guys just continue needing to go through experiences, life on the road in the league, play different opponents, and just keep getting better each day. So we'll go back at it today, quick turnaround, and leaving tomorrow morning for Happy Valley to play Penn State on Sunday.
Yeah, Morgan, you look at the women's game last night, and obviously you probably ran home and watched the men's right after that. But another very, a team that Purdue beat, obviously, in Happy Valley, but a game that went down to the last second shot. Sharon's team has I think has done very well, but this is another very competitive league.
Yeah, well, I think the women have something the men don't have yet, and that is a seasoning.
Yeah,
I think you have a veteran set of guards, and KK and Courtney done a great job. And it was I hate to lose. That's
yeah.
When do you like to lose? But it was a very, very competitive game. It was an NCAA type game. I mean, they're 12th in the country, we're 19th, and we shot free throws very well. They didn't. They were a little better inside than we were, and our percentage was a little lower. But it came down to a last shot, and I think if I had KK for a three again, she had a good night, and shot was just a little bit off. So this is a team that's gotten better over the weeks ahead, and this is not a cataclysmic loss in any stretch of the imagination. You don't like to lose, but now they got to rebound quickly and get ready to play Michigan State up there this weekend.
Well, these last two questions were questions that if Tom Ryder were sitting here, we'd be discussing with him as well. And Tom Ryder, for those of you that don't know, and you really should, lived an eventful 61 years, former Purdue men's basketball assistant coach, and that's from 1986 to 93, and of course served as an administrator in a couple different capacities on Morgan's staff from 2002 on. But to know Tom is to love Tom, and it may not be quite to the point where we can smile about everything in his life, but then again, he was a different and unique person to have around.
Well, he added to our administrative staff the voice of the coach, and I think that's always a piece that it's good to have. And as I told the people who came together for Tom's funeral, he ran the race, and the tricky thing about life is we don't know how long the race is going to be for each and every one of us. But Tom left us a role model as to how to do it, and he was compassionate, competitive. The kids loved him, the coaches loved him, and we probably are disappointed because he's gone from us, but we at the same time, we need to realize that he's earned his spot on the podium, and we'll miss him, but his legacy will live on.
And Elliot, obviously, a true love of basketball, and Morgan shares that as well. But you have a guy, Matt Painter, I thought did an excellent job, as did Morgan. It's not an easy thing to do, to stand up and eulogize somebody that you care personally about and have had such a long period of time. But one of my favorite stories was the story of the guitars after the CBI. Matt had as we said, during the funeral, it was a very emotional event. Thought he helped break some of the tension in some of his comments, but take us through that. It was a story of you and Tom playing guitar after the end of the season last year.
Well, Tom and I both, we really love music, and we like the same types of music, and he was a Grateful Dead fan, Deadhead, and I'm a fan myself. And so this started, I guess, a couple years ago, and it was during the summer, and it was a summer afternoon. It was like a Friday afternoon. Tom came over and said, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm wrapping up. I was going to try to get out here a little bit early. He goes, let's go. He goes, let's go to some pawn shops, try to find some cheap guitar we can maybe put in the office here. So that's a great idea. So away we go. He'd done this a few times because he knew exactly where we should be heading.
Yeah.
And so anyway, picked out a guitar. I went back a couple weeks later and bought it. It still hangs in my office. And from time to time, when he would come over and make his rounds and check in on the coaches, he'd sit in the office there, and we'd talk about different chords or songs or arrangements, things like that. What he was working on, what I was working on. And the day in particular that Coach Painter referenced in the eulogy was after we lost the CBI. The next day, he comes in and he starts playing. And the first thing that goes through my head is this the right time to be playing? And then I hear the door and hear Coach Painter walk in. And he walks by and he's like, what are you guys doing? And I'm at my computer, I'm working, I'm back in the trenches.
Might be a good time to do that.
I'm back in the trenches, and he's just playing away, and Coach Painter looks at him and he says, "You're just playing guitar, huh?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "It's gonna be fine." He goes, "Hey, that's in our rearview mirror. We're moving ahead." He goes, "It's gonna be fine. Now listen to this," and he starts playing, a song, see if Coach Painter can guess it. But that was what Tom added to our office a lot, was the ability to come down day after a game or leading up to a game, and he always offered a different perspective, and he always made you think about something you probably hadn't thought about before. And that was a real valuable asset for the assistants and for Coach Painter in our office. And he would just go, door to door, "Hey, what's new in recruiting? Who are we looking at? What do you got coming up this week? Whose scout is it?" And he would throw his thoughts in there, and he just always made you feel like you're doing the right thing, you're on track. And sometimes you don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Especially when you go through the ups and downs that every team goes through in a season. He was always kind of that calming influence that lets you know that, hey, you're doing all right, and at the same time, hey, look at this area here or that area there to get you back on track. So.
And Morgan, obviously, Tom had a number of different roles, and you obviously have had folks on your staff that deal directly with teams. He had a very close relationship with his not only Matt Painter and Sharon Versa, but from tennis on down. And what made him really special in terms of dealing with coaches?
Well, I think Elliot nailed it. I mean, he was a good listener, and he would get other people to engage and talk about what was on their mind. And coaching can be a lonely world because you're on the firing line. You obviously are competitive and want success, and you want it every time. And when you don't have it every time, to have somebody who's been in that situation to be there with you. And Tom wasn't always easy, as Elliot would point out. There's times he'd be fairly sharp in his views on things, but he'd always had a way to do it that didn't put people on kind of the defensive. And I asked him when he first came back, got out of coaching, to get involved in compliance, which is not an easy task in any collegiate environment. But his ability to get the coaches to trust him really enhanced the compliance culture, because people weren't afraid to go and ask him the question. He'd say, "Look, if we can do it, we'll do it, but we're not going to cut any corners." And so he built the relationships there, and it was natural for him to pull him over into the sports.
Yeah, and Elliot, analytically, I mean, he's about as sharp a guy. If you want to talk politics, you're gonna no matter what side you were on, you were going to learn something with Tom. But he had that unique skill to be able to analyze issues and be able, like Morgan said, bring them out. And that was, from my perspective, the time I was around him more. They just he could explain sometimes difficult topics in a very like compliance for someone like me that didn't always understand the nuances of things, that he could make it very, very clear to you. From a true basketball standpoint, a very unique approach to, I mean, even his time with Matt Painter before, the year that he worked when Tom was the head coach at Washington and Jefferson. What made him a unique basketball guy? What was his skill set there?
Well, he was always, when he was an assistant here, he was always in the trenches with the scouting and looking ahead, He was a big X's and O's guy. He authored a couple books on inbounds plays, and he from that standpoint, he was always talking to the coaches about, hey, let's, have you ever thought about trying this? Have you ever thought about trying that? When we would try to reference old plays from plays that they ran when Coach Painter was a player, he was the reference point there. Hey, what did we run that one time against Michigan? It was in the corner. I mean, the memory of the coaches to recall those plays is amazing.
And Matt Painter's pretty good at that, too.
And he's really good at it. And when you got the two of those guys together, it was pretty cool just to hear those two kind of think out loud together. But for us, it was just he was another member of the basketball family. I know we use that term a lot, the Purdue basketball family, but it really is unique. Yeah. And not a lot of places have what we have, and we're very lucky to have that. We brought Brandon Brantley back this year, as an assistant coach, and we've got guys around the program that have been through things with Coach Katie and then with Coach Painter and stuff, and it all just ties in. And I think that's really important because some programs, when a new coach comes in, they kind of lose touch with the past generations, and we don't have that here. And we've got a staff and people that not only were here in the past, but they embrace that part of it. And I think that's really important. And Coach Ryder was great because he would add to those stories from Coach Katie's stories, and I can't tell you how many times we'd be on the road night before a game and we're watching film in Coach Painter's suite and we're trying to gain any last minute advantage you can get on the opponent. And 9 times out of 10, the stories start coming out about, hey, remember last time we were here in Michigan, and remember when we were here in '84 and '89, all these stories come up. And if we ever tape recorded these, I mean, they would be gold because some of the stories that pop up are really, really great. And I think he was always really quick to pull those out and reminisce with us and talk about Coach Katie.
HBO versions probably, but they'd be good from that standpoint. Morgan, and obviously your staff, and it's through life you have things that happen, and you've had with Roger Blaylock's passing a couple of years ago. Right. From a leadership standpoint, it can become a morale issue of keeping everybody's head up too, and having to deal with that.
Last week was a hard week.
Yeah.
We had the awful fatality on campus.
Right.
We lost a youngster in Riley Smith who was very close to the athletics, particularly women's basketball, and then Tom. So I guess things do happen in threes. Yeah. And so it did have kind of a somber tone. You get the sense that even a little bit with the student athletes, because we're a small enough group that we can get around, and most of the kids knew Tom or they know me or know Nancy. So part of a leader's job is when it's not the best of times, it's time to elevate your communication, not go into a hole. And so we've tried to talk about it and encourage people to get out to the funeral. Did a nice little reception after the funeral. Nice. and the like. So, but everybody has to deal with it their own way because there's definite phases you go through, and some people are still in shock, and some people are in more of an acknowledgement phase. As soon as you realize that Tom's in a better place, that he was suffering tremendously at the end, the quality of life had deteriorated to the point Stacy was there, you recognize you got to let him go. Yeah. And your own feelings are selfish at that point in time because you want him, because of the experiences that Elliot mentioned, the experiences that I had. But at the end of the day, he's earned his moment, and I'm confident his legacy will live on. We'll be telling Tom Ryder stories well into the future.
Your favorites? Any other stories that come to mind, just in terms of whether it be in the last year or so, or other good basketball stories that you care to share on the coach? I just remember, I think it was last year when we were up at Wisconsin, and we pull off a miraculous win, basically. Yeah. Against a ranked Wisconsin team at a time when I don't think anybody was giving us a chance to win the game. We travel up the night before, and I'm in the hotel room, and I get a text message, and AJ says, "Hey, I forgot my shoes back in Lafayette." So, and I'm sitting there. I was in Coach Painter's room, and Coach Ryder was there. We were talking, and I showed it to Coach Ryder, and he said, "Well, we got to get to work because it's not like you can just go to Walmart and buy size 12s. AJ wears an 18, so not everybody carries 18s. No. And we have to wear Nike. So we have a couple factors at play here. So
I said, hey, you're the local guy. You're the this is your neck of the woods. You went to school here in Madison. I said, who are we calling? So he knew of a sporting goods store. He goes, oh, they'll have them. Let's call over there. So right away we're on our phones and Googling numbers and everything. And he makes the call, and I'm in one corner on the phone with one sporting goods store. He's in the other corner. Get a hold of a guy. He goes, yeah, okay. What are the models again? He's writing down, these, I don't know the different makes and models of all the Nike shoes. So we write down 3 options. Call AJ back. Which one you want? Yep. Okay. Yep. You have anything other than red? You're like, yeah, we have one black pair. One black pair. 118.
Red would be a problem.
118 black pair. They're all yours. So there's just things like that. He was always, not only from a basketball standpoint, but just helping program support and just being there for us. And then going through all that, we get done with it and we have a good laugh about it. And that, he has such a great sense of humor. He always saw the humor in things, and he was never a guy to panic in any situation. And I think that that typical story is just that was him. And he made it at the end, instead of it being a stressful event.
Right.
We're laughing about it.
He had the ability to recognize, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
We all say that.
Oh yeah, and that's hard to do. One of the hardest.
But he loved it, and we have certain people around our table that are more highly strung than others, and Tom had a good therapeutic effect, as does Calvin in that regard.
Mentoring is a thing that, and Tom I always look at as a young 61, and young when he was 41 too. I mean, just a guy that was that way. But to talk about his role, with the Ed Howitts of the world and others, even though he's had a chance to make his mark on a lot of people in that department.
Well, and Ed came to me because Tom had stepped out of coaching, and Ed had been the compliance director, and we promoted him to head up student services. I think that's when Chris Ribnick passed away, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And I was a little bit reluctant. I said, we really got to have somebody who understands the rule book. And Ed said, I understand the rule book, but he's got relationships with coaches, and we got to get people comfortable to the point that they can, if they make a mistake, don't be bashful about raising your hand. Most of the stuff that happens, it's phone call at the wrong time or wrong piece of correspondence. And so he convinced me. And what was unique is Tom, to watch his role with Ed, because face it, Ed was a manager when Tom was a coach.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a turnaround. But he always treated him with deference. Now Ed always treated him as a peer. And then he's known Nancy Cross for a long, long time. That was good. And he's just a guy that when you have a team of people, he's a knitter.
Yeah.
He doesn't command much airtime. When he says something, it's a little bit like the F. Hutton commercial. You're going to pay attention to him. But he could have done other things. But he really loved Purdue, and he really, really enjoyed not only mentoring a young coach like Matt, but also the ability to affect the student athletes. The kids that got to know him really, really enjoyed it, because it wasn't all basketball or all tennis or all this. It was about life, and he could tease with them and joke with them, and I think again he had a positive impact.
Elliot, you look at Matt Painter and obviously that close relationship with Tom and that mentoring role and yet now maybe to some extent was reversed in Matt's role as the head basketball coach at Purdue. But talk about that and because they seem in some ways to be maybe a little bit of an odd couple at times. Though I think anybody with Tom, in all fairness, is a little bit of an. You're always he's just was a different guy. But how do you think that? Why did that mesh well?
Well, they are. Well, I think they both had such a great sense of humor. I mean,
Yeah.
or they have a great sense of humor. That's the big common denominator.
Which you don't always see on Matt. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and Matt's pretty guarded about. I always tell him, be a little livelier in press conferences and. He's got a tremendous sense of humor, and people don't see it a lot. But that was probably the biggest thing, was the ability to find the humor in things. They are a little bit opposite in that Matt's a little bit of a one-track mind when it comes to it's basketball, it's basketball, it's basketball. Mm-hmm. He doesn't play golf. He doesn't have any real hobbies other than watching other sports and going to Cubs games. There's really not a lot of other stuff out there. So Tom's about the opposite. He's well read and is into music and things like that, and that's probably one of the reasons why we became so close, is because not the stereotype coaches, athletic department personnel, but a lot of them have some
tunnel
one-track
vision
minds.
from time to
And
time.
so I would say 75% of the times that Tom and I talked was about anything other than sports. It was, about history or books or stuff.
You know,
like
they
that.
had something, the other thing, though, they're opposites, but they also had a similarity. They had very quick wit.
Yeah.
Yes.
They had kind of a dry sense of humor, kind of they would remember odd things and be able to put an odd spin on it. And that's when those two got choreographing together. You just sit there and just watch the ping pong ball go back and forth. So they were different. But when it got to the they could look at life and maybe through a different set of lens than some of us can see and make us laugh. And laughing's not a bad thing these days.
No question, no question. You got to have a sense of humor from that standpoint. We're going to send you back out on the road. Thank you guys so much for taking time. Not always the easiest subject and an emotional one. We laugh and tell stories, but as Morgan said, I think everyone has hearts out to families, the Ryder family, but also the Purdue Athletic Department family, because it has been a difficult road in a number of different ways. Guys, thanks again, and we will look forward to having you on again and talking a number of different topics. We didn't answer anybody's questions today because we got to talking, but we'll look forward to we'll have Morgan and Elliot on again, and they're never short of something to say. So thanks again, and we'll take a 2-minute break, bring Coach Doug Schreiber on, and hopefully Kyle Charters, if he's made his way up from women's basketball today. We'll have him join us for segment 2 on Gold and Black Law.